our first guest today, David Nixon, and I have to say it that way because it's World Cup time with the English accent. But David, what is the greatest moment in BYU football's independence to date?
That's a great question. For me personally, I think it's watching Taysom just run all over Texas. The entire game was, I think, the best moment of independent history. I mean, he just thrashed and they couldn't stop him. You saw guys diving for him. He's running through arm tackles. For me, especially me being a Texas A&M guy, being from Texas, watching Texas just get run over like that and then seeing their D coordinator get fired, that's what I call special.
David, what about the pregame, though? What about the weather, the storm that we had to face?
That pregame will go down as the worst moment in independent history.
That's fair. That was unbelievable. I just told everybody to go back and watch that in the archives on BYUTVsports.com. David Nixon, former linebacker, former NFL guy, joining us now. We're talking Independence Day and BYU football. David, right now, we've talked about the hype machine, the knowns versus the unknowns. We know the running backs are going to be great. I feel like that is the one position group we know a ton about. Everything else is kind of up for debate. Yeah, Taysom can run, but what can Taysom do as a passer? What are the linebackers going to do? Let's start there because you were a linebacker. What do we know about the linebacking core coming back in 2014?
Well, I think outside linebacker-wise, we're one of the strongest depth-wise. You know, last year we didn't have really the depth. We could only rotate a few guys through. But this year, of course, you look at Alani. Of course, you got Bronson. But then you've got the Troy Hines coming off a mission, which I think will be able to contribute. You've got some freshmen, Fred Warner, Tyler Cook coming in. So there's guys there. You got Mike Elisa, who used to play linebacker. He's kind of bounced around to running back, now coming back to linebacker. I think you've got some athletes. You've got some incoming freshmen, some young guys coming in that can provide a little spark and some speed, et cetera. I think outside linebacker, they're solid. Inside linebacker is a different story. Inside linebacker, I'm a little worried about. You've got Manoa Pakula, who's going to be the guy. He's going to be kind of your Unga type guy, where Wani Unga, where he can leads the defense. But from there, you got Zach Stout, which he's kind of had up and down career at BYU. Obviously, has a crazy story with him, being kicked out and coming back, et cetera. But from what I hear, he's had a great spring. I talked to Craig Bills a little bit ago, and he mentioned that out of all the linebackers, he felt like Zach Stout had the best spring from beginning to end, and he improved each day. And so we'll see what happens with him. And, of course, you got Jeremiah Lutz-Doyer, and he got some playing time last year. But from there, really, you've got three linebackers that we know a little bit about. From there, it's really interesting. That position worries me. You get one of those guys go down with injury, and it could get interesting.
Bronco Mendenhall said Zach Stout would start after the spring game. That's how good of a spring he had.
Yeah, that's a great story. Great story with Zach, and that's always the stories that Coach Mendenhall loves to have. David, you said that you were confident with the outside linebackers with Alani and Bronson, and I'm 100% with you when it comes to Alani. But when it comes to Bronson, my concern is just that transition. Now, I watched him in spring a little bit, and he dropped some weight and he was able to move. But at the end of the day, it's just spring ball, right? You're going against second, third string guys. Actually, you're even going against some walk-on guys. And so I want to really see what's going to happen when he's in a real game setting. How do you think that transition has been in spring for him so far?
Yeah, same. I saw him in spring. I thought he was moving well. Fortunate enough, he's on that boundary side where he doesn't have to drop too far, and I think that's obviously the biggest issue, right? Can his big body, can this big 6'8" guy drop to the flats?
Yep.
Fortunate enough, he doesn't have to run very far, which I think is obviously game plan that way. That's the reason coaches put him over there. But talking to Taysom says, look, every time the ball snapped, and I have a read to the boundary, and I see Bronson dropping to the flats, I automatically look off and go to another read. He's like, Bronson is so big, his wingspan is so large that if I try to fit a ball anywhere in there, it's either going to get batted down or he's going to pick it off because he is so huge. And Taysom just kept reiterating the fact that it's tough to face a guy like Bronson Kaufusi. So you're right. I think his speed and he's not very agile, but at the same time his size will come into play and I think wreak havoc on opposing quarterbacks. So I think he'll do well. Obviously on the run, I think he'll be able to set a great edge, force everything back to Alani, who will be pursuing from behind, allow the rest of the defense to pursue. So I'm excited. Once again, it'll be maybe a little bit of a transition, but as always, Coach Mendenhall Coach Howell, they'll game plan to make sure that they cover up maybe Bronson's weakness and his dropping abilities, and hopefully play to his strengths.
Well, the best player in the world, in the universe, is scared to throw it over there. I'm sold. I'm confident now. I'm good. I'm good with the outside linebackers.
If you're new
best
to
player in the universe, for sure.
If you're new to Brian Logan's ideology, Taysom Hill is the best player in the universe, and he will stand by that to the grave.
It's a fact, man. I don't know this ideology. Why you talking about my religion?
David Nixon with us on BYU Sports Nation, joining us. Use the hashtag BYUSN to get involved in our conversation. David, we've talked about the linebackers. Alani and Manoa are known to a degree. Alani the most known. Bronson, as great as all of this sounds, ultimately it's speculation.
Yep.
And I feel like that makes the hype machine all the more exciting because on paper I cannot remember a time when BYU has looked this good in a number of position groups: linebacker, defensive back, wide receiver. Can you remember a time when on paper there was this much hype, and are you buying into it?
Well, first of all, yes, I'm definitely buying into it. I think the defense will be maybe one of the strongest units we had in a long time. But at the same time, once again, like you just mentioned, there are a lot of question marks, which people want to buy into it, but they're still a little bit skeptical because you've got players that have been switched around, for example, like Bronson from D-line to linebacker. You've got some safeties, corners that have all played different positions. And so everyone's kind of anticipating this rollout against UConn. Where exactly will everyone line up, and how will the defense mesh together, and how will they play together? So I am buying the hype, but it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch how it all comes together and how those guys can play as a unit.
Does it not make it more exciting with the prospect of the unknown?
Listen, I don't think it can get any more exciting. Football excites me enough. I don't know if this can get me any more excited.
Right.
But no, it's exciting to watch these guys develop and once again see guys move around from position to position because that's tough. No question, it's tough to have to move from D-line to backer or from outside to inside. I mean, there's some transition there, and it's fun to watch players have to stretch, have to learn new positions, and then watch them go out there on Saturdays and dominate.
Which position group do you feel like is most likely to live up to the hype and expectations in 2014?
DBs.
I think defensively.
Either way.
Defensively.
Okay, we'll start defense.
Yeah, we'll start defense. I think the secondary. I think the secondary, you've got guys that have rotated. So you've got guys that have played free safety. They played corner. You've got lots of experience there. You got some guys coming in. You got Trevor Bateman, who I think is going to have a big impact this year. He's kind of been flying underneath the radar just a little bit.
Really, Trevor Bateman. He had a good spring.
He's had a great spring. Physical guy. I think you'll see him. I think you'll be seeing him start a boundary corner. Mark it down.
Wow.
Yep, mark it down. There. I think he'll be starting there.
I will buy you lunch every day. Every game day for as long as we're doing this, if he is starting in boundary corner, without injuries though. Without injuries, you can't factor in injuries.
Trevor Bateman, mark this down. Brian Logan, get David Nixon lunch for life.
For life.
Hey, let it be noted.
For life.
Let it be noted. Hey, listen. He's a physical guy, and Coach Minhall loves those guys that they can get up, they can press, they're physical down the field. When it comes to run, they can also put an edge on the defense. So I think he'll be the
not over
corner.
Bobby Daniel.
Well, we'll see. Where's Bobby? Where does Daniel end up with? Where is he? Is he a boundary or is he a safety? Where are they going to move him?
That's true too. I think that's a known unknown. Because we don't know. Maybe he could end up in safety. Who knows?
Well, and once again, it goes back to originally what I was saying with the fact that this is why I think this unit is the strongest, because you've got guys that, once again, can play all positions. They're well-versed. They know what they're doing. And so it makes them just a little more versatile to where they can move from corner to safety. If there's injuries, guys can move around. For that reason, I think the secondary will be the strongest unit on the defense.
On the offense, we've got about a little less than a minute, David. I feel like it's the running backs, hands down, that we know the most about, that they will live up to expectation. What do you think will be the group on the offensive side that lives up to expectations?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with the running back. They're solid. You've got the big power with Lasike and Algie Brown. Then you've got the speed of Jamal and Adam Hine. That's hard to match. But I'm excited about these receivers. There's a lot of unknowns there, but you've got the solid guys with Mitch Matthews, who's going to be the go-to guy, a big body. Hopefully he stays healthy. But then you've got the guys like Nick Kurtz coming in, Jordan Leslie, and then, of course, Ross Apple. Hopefully he's healthy. And then you've got some guys also transferring, Devon Blackman, see if he ends up getting some play time. Kurt Henderson. So there are some exciting parts of that BYU offense. Taysom sounds like he's improving, and hopefully he has some targets to throw to. And then once again, that running game will hopefully open up that passing game and stretch that defense to open up some areas.
David Nixon, former linebacker, NFL guy, and #1 proponent of Trevor Bateman starting at boundary corner because he wants lunch from Brian
You
Logan.
heard it here
Whatever you
first.
want.
You heard it here first.
Whatever you want, man.
I like the boldness. Hey, David, great to talk to you again. We'll see you soon.